This is the story of a strange, true thing that happened to me about 2 years ago. I am going to tell you everything, exactly how it happened. You can believe it or not, but I swear, I'm not making anything up. It was a cold October evening. I remember because Halloween was just around the corner, and all the stores were filled with candy, decorations, and those fake skeletons hanging from the ceiling. I had just finished work late and was driving home when I realized I had no food left at home, not even bread. So I stopped at this small grocery store just a few blocks away from my apartment. Now this wasn't some big supermarket. It was one of those old, slightly run-down neighborhood stores. The lights always flickered, the parking lot was almost empty, and the shelves were packed too close together. But it was open 24/7, and that night, it was the only place nearby, still open. As I walked in, the automatic doors opened with a loud creak. It didn't sound like it was supposed to. It sounded off. I looked around. The place was empty. Not a single customer inside. The only sound was the low hum of the refrigerators and a slow beep coming from the checkout counter. There was a girl at the register. She looked like she was maybe in her early 20s wearing the store's uniform. She didn't say anything when I entered, just gave me a quick look and then went back to staring at her phone. Something about her felt distracted, like she wasn't really there. I started picking up what I needed: bread, eggs, some snacks, and milk. I was halfway down aisle 4 when I heard something fall behind me, a can of soup. It had rolled out of the shelf by itself and landed at my feet. I didn't touch the shelf. No one else was around. I bent down to pick it up, and as I placed it back, I heard something strange. A whisper, very faint. It sounded like someone saying my name. I stood up quickly and looked around. No one. I even peeked over the shelves. Just silence and the same low hum of the lights. I told myself I was tired. Maybe I imagined it. I kept shopping, but now I felt uneasy, like someone was watching me. Every step I took, every item I picked, it felt like eyes were following me from the shadows between the shelves. Then I noticed something weird. There was this man, standing at the end of the next aisle. He was tall, thin, and wearing an old brown coat. His back was turned to me. He wasn't moving, just standing there. I thought maybe he worked there or was just another customer, so I kept walking. But every time I glanced over, he was still in the same position, not moving even a little. Then I turned the corner to get some juice, and he was gone. Just gone. I checked the whole aisle. Empty. There wasn't even enough time for him to walk away without me seeing. That's when I really started to feel scared. I hurried to the front of the store with my basket and placed everything on the counter. The girl behind the register was still looking at her phone. She didn't say a word. I said, "Hey, did you see that guy in the brown coat? He was just in aisle 5. She slowly lifted her head and looked at me, her face pale and tired. "There's no one else in here," she said quietly. "You're the only customer tonight." I laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. "No, I swear I saw him. Tall guy, brown coat. He was just standing there." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. "He comes in sometimes. Just stands there. We don't talk about it." I blinked. "What do you mean he comes in sometimes?" She didn't answer. She just looked down and started scanning my items like nothing happened. I paid, grabbed my bag, and walked out fast. I kept looking over my shoulder the whole way to my car. I felt like something was following me, something I couldn't see. Got in, locked the doors, and drove away. But it didn't end there. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the man, about how he stood there so still, and how he just vanished. I even looked him up online. I searched for any strange stories about that grocery store. And that's when I found something. There was a thread on a local forum. Someone asked, "Anyone ever see the man in the brown coat at the Hillwood grocery?" My blood froze. I clicked it. There were dozens of replies, people describing the same man. Tall, thin, brown coat, always facing away, always disappearing when you get too close. One person said they followed him once, and when they turned the corner, they saw their own face staring back at them. Another person said they tried to take a picture, but the photo only showed static. No man, just a blur. The scariest post was from someone who claimed to work there years ago. They said the man in the brown coat used to come in every night for a month. He never bought anything, just walked slowly through the aisles. One night, he walked into the freezer section and never came out. No one ever saw him leave, but people kept seeing him again and again. I didn't go back to that store for a long time, but a few months later I passed by it during the day, just out of curiosity. The building looked abandoned, windows covered in newspaper, doors chained shut. A for lease sign hung crooked on the front. I asked around. The locals said it had shut down suddenly. No warning, no reason. The owner just closed it and disappeared. Now here's the part that haunts me most. A few weeks after that, I was in a different store, much farther from my place. Big, bright, full of people. I was starting to feel normal again. And then, as I was checking out, I saw him through the glass front doors, standing on the other side of the street. Tall, thin, brown coat, not moving, just watching. I blinked, and he was gone. I don't know what he is. I don't know if he's real or something else. But I know I saw him, and I know I wasn't the only one. So if you ever find yourself alone in a grocery store late at night, and you feel like someone is watching you from the next aisle, don't look too long. And whatever you do, don't follow him. This is the story of something real, something terrifying. I'm going to tell you what happened to my cousin Josh, one night at a grocery store, and after you hear it, you might think twice before walking down an empty aisle alone. Josh was a night owl, always has been. He used to work the late shift at a gas station and loved the peace and quiet of nighttime. Said the world felt calmer when everyone else was asleep. Anyway, one night around 2 a.m., Josh realized he was out of coffee and cereal, his two essentials. He lived on the edge of town, where there's this 24-hour grocery store called Greenway Market. Nothing fancy, just a quiet store lit with those buzzing pale white lights. You've probably been to places like it. Always feels a bit too empty, a bit too quiet. Josh parked his car and went inside. The parking lot was nearly empty. One old truck and his car, that's it. Inside, the store was silent. No music playing, no chatter, just the faint hum of the lights and the soft clatter of a mop somewhere in the distance. Now Josh wasn't the jumpy type. He was the guy who laughed during horror movies and walked alone through cemeteries at night for fun. But even he said the moment he stepped into Greenway Market that night, he felt something was off. Like the store was watching him. He shook it off, walked over to grab his cereal first, then to the coffee aisle. That's when things got strange. He was the only one there, or so he thought. But as he turned to go down the next aisle, he saw someone standing at the far end, just standing there, perfectly still, back facing him. No cart, no basket. Just a person in a gray hoodie with the hood up, head tilted slightly to the side like they were listening for something. Josh paused. The store was silent. So silent that he could hear the soft squeak of the janitor's mop somewhere far away. But the person in the hoodie didn't move, not a step, not a twitch. Josh said, "Excuse me," as he passed. The figure didn't respond. Creeped out, he grabbed his coffee fast and walked away. He glanced back once, and the figure was gone. Now, here's where it starts to get really weird. Josh reached the freezer section to grab some ice cream. He bent down to open the door, and in the reflection of the glass he saw the same person, standing right behind him. But when he spun around, no one was there. He ran his hand through his hair and laughed nervously. "Get a grip," he told himself. He was starting to think maybe he was just tired. He made his way to the self-checkout. That's when he noticed something that made his stomach twist. Every single screen on the self-checkout machines was flickering, not glitching, flickering, like the old static on TVs from the 90s. And on every screen in that static mess, he saw the same thing for a split second. His own face. But not how he looked at that moment. No. It was his face, but frozen in terror. Mouth wide open like he was screaming. Eyes wide like he was seeing something horrifying. Then the screens went back to normal. Now Josh was really freaked out. He decided not to use self-checkout and walked up to the single cashier working that night, an old guy with glasses who looked half asleep. As he rang up the items, Josh tried to explain what he saw, but the old guy didn't even look up. He just said, "You saw them, didn't you?" Josh blinked. "What?" "The Watchers," the man said slowly. "They show up sometimes. When it's real quiet, they don't hurt you unless you notice them." Josh froze. "What do you mean, notice them?" The man finally looked at him. His eyes were bloodshot. "You made eye contact, didn't you?" Josh didn't know what to say. The man handed him his bag and said in a low voice, "Leave, don't come back. Not after tonight." Josh rushed out of the store, heart racing. The parking lot was still empty. He unlocked his car, threw the bag into the passenger seat, and jumped in. Just as he was about to start the car, he saw something in his rearview mirror. It was the person in the hoodie, standing directly behind his car. But again, when he turned around, there was no one there. Josh drove home as fast as he could. He didn't stop at lights, didn't even turn on music, just silence and the pounding of his heart. He got home, locked the door, and tried to calm down. He told himself it was stress, maybe a dream, maybe a prank. But then, around 3:40 a.m., he got a notification on his phone. Motion detected at front door. He had a security camera set up. Josh opened the app to check. At first, the screen was just dark. But then, something slowly stepped into view. A figure, wearing a gray hoodie, standing still, head tilted, just like before. But this time, it slowly lifted its head. And Josh swears on everything it had no face, just skin where eyes, nose, and a mouth should have been. Like something was wearing human skin but hadn't figured out how to use it. And then the camera feed cut out. The footage disappeared from the app. Just gone. Josh didn't sleep that night, or the next night. He started keeping all his lights on even in the daytime. He wouldn't go near windows. He covered his mirrors. He even moved to a different apartment a few months later. He never went back to that store, not once. But the story doesn't end there. A few weeks after Josh moved, I went to Greenway Market myself. I know, I was stupid, but I had to see it for myself. I walked in during the day, bright, safe, a few people shopping. Nothing creepy, until I got to aisle 6. There, standing at the end, was someone in a gray hoodie. Still, head tilted, just like Josh said. I blinked, and they were gone. Now I know what you're thinking. Could be a coincidence, right? Just someone with bad posture. Maybe. But I've never felt cold like that. Never felt like something invisible was breathing down my neck. So here's my advice. Don't. Go shopping alone at night, and if you ever see someone standing too still in a hoodie, head tilted like they're listening for your heartbeat, don't look at them. Don't acknowledge them. And for your own sake, don't let them follow you home. This is the story of something that really happened. I'm not joking, and I'm not trying to scare you for fun. I'm going to tell you about what happened to me one night when I was working the night shift at a grocery store. And after you hear it, you might never look at the aisles of your local supermarket the same way again. I was 19, broke, trying to save up for college. So I took a night shift job at this small grocery store just outside the city. Miller's Market. You probably wouldn't even notice it if you drove by during the day. Dusty windows, flickering sign, barely any customers. But they paid me $12 an hour to work the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, and I needed the money. Now the first week was normal. Boring even. I spent most nights restocking shelves, mopping the floors, or sitting behind the counter scrolling through my phone. The store was mostly empty, except for a few late-night weirdos grabbing snacks or beer. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then came the 7th night. It started quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels heavy. Like the building itself is holding its breath. Around 1:30 a.m., I was restocking cans in aisle 4 when I heard something. Footsteps. Not the usual slow, dragging kind you expect from a tired night shopper. These were fast, sharp, like someone sprinting down an aisle. I stood up straight and looked around. The footsteps stopped. I called out, "Hello? Store's open, but if you're messing around, I'm calling security." No answer. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe I was just hearing things. I went back to stacking soup cans. Then the lights above me flickered. Not all the lights, just the ones above aisle 4. The others stayed bright, but mine blinked like someone was playing with a switch. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Now, I'm not the superstitious type. I don't believe in ghosts, demons, or cursed buildings. At least I didn't back then. But something about that moment felt wrong. Like I just stepped onto a stage and something unseen was watching me from behind the curtain. I turned around and saw someone at the end of the aisle. A man. Tall. Wearing a dark suit that didn't quite fit right. His arms were too long. His head tilted slightly, and his face looked like it had been drawn in pencil and then erased halfway. Blurry. Like my eyes couldn't fully lock onto it. I blinked, and he was gone. Not walked away. Not ducked into another aisle. Just gone. I backed up so fast I knocked over a stack of paper towels. They hit the floor with a loud thump and the lights flickered again, this time all across the store. I rushed back to the front counter and checked the monitors connected to our security cameras. The system was basic, just 4 grainy screens showing the store's entrances and aisles. I flipped through each feed. Nothing. Aisles empty. Doors closed. Not a soul in sight. I almost laughed at myself. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe it was my brain playing tricks on me. But then one of the screens blinked, just for a second. And the man was there. Standing in aisle 6. Staring directly into the camera. And then he was gone again. At this point, I called my manager. Told him something weird was going on. His answer? If you're scared, just stay up front and wait it out. Cameras glitch all the time. Easy for him to say. He was probably home in bed. So I stayed at the front counter. I kept the lights on. I kept one hand near the phone. Then at exactly 2:44 a.m., every single aisle monitor turned off at once. Just black screens. And then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks on the glass entrance doors. I stood up. My hands were shaking. The doors were automatic, so they should have opened if someone was there. But they stayed shut. I stepped closer. Nothing. No one outside. Just empty parking lot and streetlights. Then the doors slowly began to slide open on their own. No footsteps, no breeze, just a soft hiss and open space. I slammed the emergency lock button under the counter, and the moment I did, every light in the store turned off. I was surrounded by darkness, no moonlight, no headlights. Just pitch black and silence, except for the sound of footsteps. Slow, steady ones. Coming closer. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The weak beam cut through the dark just enough for me to see him, standing at the end of aisle 1. I swear he was closer than before, like he'd moved halfway across the store in seconds. Still no clear face, just a fuzzy outline of something human, but wrong. And then he whispered something. I couldn't hear the words, but I felt them, like static in my brain, like pressure behind my eyes. I ran, out the back door, didn't even grab my stuff, just ran and didn't stop until I was down the block. I called the police from a diner nearby. When they showed up and searched the store, they found nothing. No man, no signs of a break-in. And the security footage? It was all gone, wiped clean between 1:30 and 3 a.m. The store closed 2 months later. Official reason? Financial issues. But I heard from a former co-worker that I wasn't the only one who'd seen him. A woman working stock a week later said she saw a man standing in the freezer, staring at her through the glass. When she opened the door to tell him to leave, he wasn't there. But she swore her reflection blinked even though she didn't. Another guy quit after only 1 shift. Wouldn't say why. Just walked out in the middle of the night and never came back. So here's my warning. If you ever find yourself alone in a grocery store late at night and the lights start to flicker, if you see someone standing at the end of an aisle too, still too silent, with a face you can't quite focus on, don't speak. Don't run, and whatever you do, don't look away. This is the story of something that happened to my friend Noah, and I'm going to tell you about it because, well, it still chills me to the bone. You might not believe it, but I was there, and I saw it happen. Maybe you'll start thinking twice about your next late-night grocery run after you hear this. It all started on a Tuesday night. Noah works late shifts as a security guard at a local grocery store called Broadway Market. It's the kind of place that doesn't stand out in any way. It's a small independent store, barely visible in the shadow of the larger chain stores nearby. Nothing special about it, except for the fact that it's open 24 hours. Noah had been working there for a few months and had grown used to the quiet nights. He'd always joke about how he liked the emptiness of the store after everyone else left. "It's kind of peaceful," he said, "just him, the aisles, and the quiet hum of the fridges." But this Tuesday night was different. I remember it clearly because Noah had invited me to come by after I finished work. We were going to hang out and grab some snacks. I didn't think much of it, just another casual night. But when I walked into the store, I could feel something was off. There was a weird energy in the air, like the place was holding its breath. The lights flickered twice when I walked in, but Noah didn't seem to notice. "Hey, you made it," he said, popping up from behind the counter. He always seemed calm, cool, collected, no matter what. He had that vibe, you know, like nothing could rattle him. We went down the aisles, picking up some chips and drinks, talking about the usual stuff, work, life, whatever. The store was empty, like it always was at that hour. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It felt too quiet, like the whole store was waiting for something to happen. Around 11:30 we passed the dairy section, and that's when things got weird. Noah stopped in his tracks, staring down the aisle with a confused look on his face. "Did you hear that?" he asked. I paused, listening. At first, all I could hear was the soft buzzing of the overhead lights and the distant hum of the refrigeration units. But then there it was, a soft scratching noise coming from the end of the aisle, like something was dragging along the floor. It wasn't loud, but it was definitely there. "Probably just some rats or something," I said, trying to brush it off. But Noah didn't look convinced. "Let's check it out," he said, stepping cautiously toward the sound. I followed behind, and the noise grew louder as we got closer. We rounded the corner, expecting to find maybe some spilled cans or a cleaning cart dragging across the floor, but nothing. The aisle was completely empty. "See?" I said, trying to joke, but there was something in Noah's eyes that told me he wasn't buying it. "Something's off," he muttered. I swear I heard it. We both stood there for a moment, just staring down the empty aisle. I don't know why, but it felt like the whole place was holding its breath again. Then, out of nowhere, the lights above us flickered again. This time, going completely out for a split second before coming back on. When they did, we saw something. At the far end of the aisle, a figure was standing. A man. But not just any man. This one was different. His clothes were old, like from decades ago. A dusty brown coat, a dirty torn hat pulled low over his eyes, and boots that looked worn beyond repair. But what struck us the most was his stillness. He didn't move. Didn't even breathe. Noah froze, and I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It was like he'd just appeared out of thin air. "Who the hell is that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I don't know," Noah said, his voice tight. "I've never seen him before." The man just stood there staring straight ahead, his back turned to us. For a moment, we didn't know what to do. Noah was about to call out, but before he could say anything, the man turned his head. Not a slow turn, but like he was suddenly aware of us being there, and his eyes locked onto ours. But they weren't eyes. Not really. They were black, completely black, like there was nothing inside them. Just empty, soulless voids. And in that moment, I felt it, the cold. A cold that crawled into my chest and made it hard to breathe. We didn't wait around to see what would happen next. Noah turned to me, grabbing my arm and pulled me toward the exit. "Let's go," he whispered urgently. We ran down the aisles, and the whole time I could feel the man's presence behind us, following us. Every time I looked back, he was still standing there, watching, not moving, not making a sound, just waiting. By the time we got to the front of the store, the door to the office was shut. The security system was down. Noah hit the emergency button to open the doors, but nothing happened. The whole place felt locked in. And that's when we heard it. The soft scratching sound again. But this time, it was closer. Noah slammed his fist against the door, his eyes wild with panic. "Come on, open," he yelled. The sound got louder, like something was dragging itself across the floor, moving closer, getting right behind us. And then, just as suddenly as it all started, the door to the office unlocked. The lights flickered once more, but this time they didn't just flicker. They went completely out, and the store went black. We bolted through the door and out into the parking lot, breathing heavily. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. We didn't stop running until we got to Noah's car, and even then we kept looking behind us, expecting to see that man, or whatever he was, standing there, watching. Noah didn't go back to work the next night. He called in sick. And honestly, I don't blame him. I wouldn't have gone back either. A few days later, I heard they closed the store down for routine maintenance. They said nothing unusual had happened, but I know what we saw. There's something in that store. Something that's been there for a long time. Maybe even before the building was ever built. And maybe, just maybe, it's still there. So, the next time you find yourself in an empty grocery store at night, just know this. You're not always alone. And if you hear that soft scratching sound, or if the lights start flickering, or if you see someone standing at the end of the aisle, don't approach. Don't look. Don't even breathe. Just get out. Because whatever's waiting in the shadows might not be something you can outrun. Trust me, I've seen it.